Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 24 of Forget Your Warranty, the review series for the aftermarket competition vehicles, street vehicles and various other types of aftermarket tuner car on Gran Turismo. And this particular vehicle is the second in a twin pack, if you will, of cars from the same aftermarket tuner, Blitz, and this is the premium model of the two. Now, we've already of course featured the non-premium ER34 D1GP Drift Skyline. As I said, it's a non-premium. It's got some interesting advantages to it, such as the fact that it is cheaper than this vehicle, for instance, by around 50 grand. It's also lighter, significantly lighter in fact, at 1180 kilos to this car's 1252, so a pretty big difference between the two vehicles. And of course that car also has, interestingly, neon, both underglow and in the grille, which of course I've featured in other videos as well, that interesting point which differentiates it from other drift vehicles, other Skylines and just other cars in general on Gran Turismo. Now, this particular car is probably the more popular choice of the two, which isn't really surprising. There are two primary reasons for that. One is it's the newer car to be featured on the game, so of course people are going to go for the model that hasn't been used as much, and also it's a premium, and that attracts a lot more attention. As far as the visuals, it's not just a premium version of the same car. It does have notably different visuals. It has a different livery, it has a rear wing, the body kit is different, and most of the specs on the car are also different. It's not just a copy of the other car by any means. Also in the way it drives, it's definitely not the same vehicle. Now, what do you get from this car? Because I mentioned in the episode featuring the non-premium Blitz that it actually makes a pretty good track car, as well as the obvious choice of having it as a drifter. What about this vehicle? Does that also carry over here? Because they have a big advantage as far as aftermarket cars go, and that is that they're based on Skylines. Skylines are great cars to work with, especially when you tune them. They're very responsive to it and they work well with it. So even though you're changing the physics of the car by adding wheelbase, an extra couple of doors, which of course changes the way it drives, the weight is different, it's a rear-wheel drive which makes a big difference, you're essentially working with a very similar base vehicle, and as such you get basically the kind of handling manners and driving ability that you'd expect from a Skyline. Now, this car has some similar numbers to the non-premium. It's also a 2.9 litre turbo, it's also rear-wheel drive. The price is 50 grand more, but they're still both around the 200 to 250 grand range. And as far as power and torque, it is the better of the two. We already mentioned the weight. It does weigh around 70-ish kilos more, but the fact that it does have 746 horsepower instead of 734 and 568 foot-pounds of torque instead of 565, both of course on the non-premium in comparison, does not necessarily completely make up for it, because of course that extra weight is a larger number difference than the power and torque, but at least it helps towards it. It means that the difference between the two doesn't necessarily swing totally towards the non-premium. There are advantages to this car as well. Now, what about the way it drives? Well, I actually have never considered this car to be better than the non-premium. In all of my experience on Gran Turismo using it, both for drifting and just driving it in general, I haven't found it to be a better car in practice. On paper, it is better in some ways, but I just don't see any real improvement over the already very good non-premium version. Now, I'm sure other people feel differently. The fact that it is a premium will sway a lot of people. And also, once you prefer a certain type of car, you do tend to focus in on its advantages rather than acknowledging the points which it's perhaps not as good as you remember it as being or think of it as being. The reality is, I don't have a huge loyalty toward either vehicle, so I like to think that I can be objective about it, and as such, I can't say that I see any particular improvement about this car. Now, it does have advantages, but the advantages don't really have to do with driving the car, and those are in particular better graphics, a fully detailed interior, and a visual update in general with the extra or alternative body parts such as the body kit, the wing, etc. Apart from that though, which is a significant improvement, many people do value that, it just doesn't really take the good points, in particular the car already was working with, and take them to a new level, not at least from my experience. Yes, it does have slightly more power, slightly more torque, but it also takes the back step of having a lot more weight. Now, is it a bad car? No, by no stretch. It's an excellent drift car, just like the non-premium version is, and also just like the non-premium, it also makes a pretty good track car. The handling is very good, especially for a car of its size, and overall, I would recommend this vehicle. However, of the two, I would recommend the non-premium, not because I prefer it, but because I just think it's a better deal. As it happens, I do prefer it as well, but that's not the reason why. For 50 grand less and 70 kilos less, it's just the obvious choice. You get everything that this car offers, but for a lower price. It's kind of a no-brainer in the case of this vehicle. Now, if you do view having a premium spec as being more important than a cheaper price and lower weight, then by all means go for this model, and if you do buy it, you certainly won't be disappointed with it. If you can afford to, I would probably recommend getting both, because then you can judge the differences for yourself. But for me personally, I have to say that the non-premium seems, to me at least, to be the better car. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.